ago. Maybe a 3-2, kind of similar to a Laser versus Stats, which went all the way to game number 5. But Lambo just showing so much brilliance, so much prep, and I'm really excited to watch him as the day continues on. But before we get into more Lambo games, we have Bunny versus Firefly coming up as we take a look here at the bracket. Lambo starting the day off in the lower bracket, round 2 with a 3-0 over Stats, and now Bunny versus Firefly in the next best of 5 of the day.
Yes, and we mentioned it yesterday, but that upper bracket semifinals was such an important match for both players because Showtime and Shin, who won that, they get to now have 2 chances to qualify for his Lambo and Bunny, who got knocked down. They will have to run a gauntlet of at minimum 2 extra series just to get that one last qualifying chance. Lambo obviously already made it happen. He did his thing, but it's up to Bunny versus Firefly now. And we were mentioning during the break, you were saying that you feel like this is pretty solidly in favor of Bunny. And looking at his TVP, it's hard to disagree. But I don't know. I Firefly, he's got like this X factor to him.
No, he has been really impressing me as somebody who doesn't watch the PvP fiestas of the Asia region all of that much. I have been so pleasantly surprised by Firefly's play. He's been making some game-winning moves that are really off meta, it feels. Like some of his games, I remember on Site Delta versus, I think it might have been
Shin,
if memory serves. He had this army composition. It looked like MC was playing. He had like full Stalker Sentry on 3 bases on Site Delta. It was so cool. I'm excited to see what he brings to the table here as we're going to start this best of series off. And spawning in the bottom right, representing Offside Esports, it is the Red Protoss Firefly.
And his opponent spawning up at the top left, the best named animal player of all time for Team Falcons, it's Bunny. That's my favorite Cats intro.
Oh no! I was trying to think of who else is named after an animal. Poor Paolo.
No! He's the one who said it. He's the one who did the intro. Yeah. No. I'm not just firing shots
is also
at Cats.
Very much up his alley.
Yeah.
I think Gumiho is also technically kind of named after an animal.
Really?
Gumiho like 9-tailed fox or it's something like that. I can't remember.
Oh.
I remember Tastosis discussing this in like 2010, but I barely remember. I know Gu means 9. Anyway, I don't know this stuff. My Korean's not high enough level to break down Gumiho, the deep meanings of Gumiho's ID, but
yeah, it's all good. We can yap about it though. For me, he's always been the Towel Terran.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, that Artosis video where he's at the GSL qualifiers, and yeah. Oh
no!
Oops.
Sorry, that was an oopsie. But you're saying Artosis.
Yeah,
the GSL qualies.
The old school GSL qualies in 2010, 2011, and we see this kid playing with a towel over his mouse, and of course it's a very young Gumiho. Because he had those sweaty hands, but man, losing that early probe, that sucks. Feels bad, man.
Feels bad. Especially in a series like this against Bunny, who over the course of all of his TVPs yesterday, keep in mind he played against both Showtime and Stats, he was canceling a lot of units out of the barracks. He was cutting some corners in terms of getting that command center as fast as possible, getting his factory and starport online as fast as possible. Even in some games, going for some really greedy Maru-esque 3 command center into engineering bay before tech up strategies. So for Firefly to lose his scouting piece this early on, it does feel a little bit bad. You might look at that as being only a probe, and yeah, inevitably that Reaper probably going to come out, and there's a good chance it will chase it down. But just the fact that Firefly up until this point hasn't been able to confirm the timing of these Marines or anything else, it is a little bit painful here. Hold on a second. Bunny is microing this so well. That is a dead adept.
Oh, I was just going to say we got Neo from the Matrix, that one Marine that dodged the second shot as it jumped into the bunker, but great jump there, killing that first adept. All of the little mental victories 3 minutes into game 1 have gone in the favor of Bunny. 100%. And by no means is this going to decide the series, but it certainly gives you a great jumping off point. And more so than anything, I feel like it's just it's a bad feeling for the Protoss to start things off this way. There is a shield battery in the main base, so that Reaper won't find any value in terms of damage. But even just getting the full scout is quite nice. Oh, probe. Oh, he's going to be able to keep it alive.
That one out.
Oh, no. He put
oh,
back.
no.
Ah.
Oh, and now the Hellions coming here to the natural expansion to be able to get at least one probe. If that survives. Okay, the Adept, the hero Adept coming back. I was going to say, you can't. Firefly needs some wins here in the early game. This is looking painful. That's a lot of early units going down here for Protoss. Again, it might not seem like a lot, but PvT, you kind of walk this very fine line, especially in the early game here as Protoss. So to lose 3 probes and the Adept for a Hellion and Reaper whose main jobs were pretty much just to get scouting information and maybe pick off 1 probe. Not a easy beginning here for Firefly, and also this Adept missing the medevac moving across the map. It will be a 2 Widowmine drop with a Siege Tank follow-up. Bunny was really loving his Siege Tank play earlier on yesterday. Seems like he's going right back to it today. Is the Widowmine drop coming in here into the natural expansion? Firefly hasn't microed it just yet, but he buys his time, does it right in time. Luckily, that Observer not going to hover over the probes, so won't take too much damage. In fact, only 2 probes going down in total as Firefly diffuses the situation pretty easily.
Yeah, and he gets both the Widowmine kills, which is rather nice. Looks like it is going to be just a single Raven, no interference matrix. We usually don't see players playing interference matrix in this matchup often anymore, unless it's like robotics facility first, which is very rare. There's only a few players that play that style. Shout out to Strange on the European server, who does that like almost every game. He's a big fan of that. Firefly gonna try and put some pressure on the bunker, but I mean the repair is good, and that's not gonna be a kill. Would have maybe preferred to see him just go after the SCV that was building that supply depot for the guaranteed damage.
Yeah, but instead just going to be warping in more Stalkers as the pressure is mounting outside the natural expansion of Bunny. Keep in mind, he does have those Siege Tanks in the main base, so they will help a little bit here on the defense, but with the Warp Prism Micro coming in and the repair coming down, Bunny's going to barely keep that bunker alive again. Nice micro by Firefly to pull that low HP Stalker back, as our Chinese Protoss player would have loved to take down that bunker and start dealing some real damage to this bio, but instead, Bunny's standing strong, and now with this Raven getting some more damage done as Firefly blinks in the main, but once more, that Siege Tank really anchoring the defense as the Stalkers, one of them falls and the rest of them take a ton of splash damage.
Yeah, it's easy to look at a player like MaxPax, who makes this Blink Stalker aggression look almost broken sometimes with how well he executes it and how exquisite his, unit retention is. It's easy to forget that it's really freaking hard to do that kind of stuff, to make that happen. We're going to see a nice little bit of Warp Prism Micro in the natural. Going to be able to pick off just 1 SCV. And unfortunately not able to save that Stalker, so it's actually a negative trade there for Firefly. It feels like he has not had very many wins in this game at all.
It seems like he's just not quite locked in yet. There's been quite a few micro hiccups here in game number 1 as Bunny now unloading here in this blind spot in the main base of Firefly. That shield battery going to quickly go down, and we'll see if Bunny goes for the pylon or if he's going to go for the probes. Takes 2 probes down, and now is going to bring this tech online. That will delay charge a little bit as Bunny's starting to take some presence on the map. We'll see if he can take advantage of this. Of course, the bio with the medevac on such low HP is just going to trade out. You cannot escape that situation, so just get 2 or 3 Stalker kills if you can.
If he... Okay, I was going to say, if he retargets, that would be really nice to get that 3rd Stalker. That's a super value drop, and with no charge done, can Firefly even hold this push? I am not so sure. He's got a lot of units here.
With enough Stalkers like this, I think it's more than enough, actually.
Yeah, it's
Bunny might be taken a little bit aback by how low-tech Firefly is playing this. He threw down, I think, 5 gateways during that whole transition and is really going for this kind of manpower field. Going pure gateway mana, as Artosis' chat would say. And that's going to mean that he has a pretty strong force right now. Look at this Widowmine drop on top of the main army. The Widowmines are not getting targeted. Oh, this splash damage could be huge. Steadfast. Indeed, the Stalkers and Zealots going down, and it doesn't matter that Firefly was going to cut corners and try to get the strongest gateway army he could. If Bunny is microing like that and taking fights like that, wow, what an engagement, as Bunny is just eclipsing this Protoss player in terms of supply. And with battery overcharge now running out, Firefly is going to take some more bad trades, I'm afraid, and this might be the end, or at least the beginning of the end here in game number 1.
Yeah, it certainly is. This is the snowball already. Nice cancel on the warp in of the Zealots. Prism actually being forced to warp in into the fight. Very clever move from Firefly, but that was a pimp play if ever you've seen one out of Bunny. That is the dabbing on your opponent, dropping the mines directly on the army. And Firefly, oh, nice little move right there with a Warp Prism micro, able to dodge the mines. But I mean, the supplies tell the tale. Like, this is like you said, this is a pure Gateway Man setup against a Terran that is just continuing to rally in bio. 1-1 bio versus 1-0. Firefly taking really the best engagements he could. But it's just a numbers game at this point, and Bunny will take game number 1. Realistically, that was a beautiful little maneuver. That was a pretty game from Bunny.
Yeah, Bunny seemed completely on fire in that game. I feel like pretty much everything went his way for almost the entire duration of the match. Firefly with a couple cute plays there at the very end, but we saw stats in his series against Lambo look very shaky from the beginning, and that led to him in a 3-0 defeat. Bunny here in game number 1 looked even better than he did yesterday, and he was almost the player instead of Showtime to make it into that final qualifying match in the upper bracket against Shin. So I'm really liking Bunny's chances now in this series. I mean, coming into this one, I had him pegged as the favorite, but after a performance like that, I mean, the micro that he showcased from literally the beginning of the game with the 2 SUVs taking down the probe, and then the 2 Marines and the Reaper in a bunker with one of the Marines on 1 HP being able to kill an Adept? That should not happen. I mean, Bunny just found all these different trades, all these cool moves. And Bunny, I mean, he's one of the best players in the world at pulling opponents apart, but usually he does it with medevacs, not with just pure micro flexing. That was really cool to see. He is on point today.
He is really on point, and flexing is the term that comes to mind for sure. If you're Firefly, I mean, he still had that dog in him at the end. You know, he was still microing his units super hard, even at the end, even when the game was like well out of his grasp. So I'm not worried about him crumbling by any means, but that is one of those games where you're like, well, he beat me. I did not lose that game. He beat me.
Well, it is only one game in a best of 5, but wow. What a statement from Bunny. I mean, the Widowmine drop on the main army there to finish things off was like the slam dunk that breaks the backboard. It was crazy. Yeah, well, let's see if this guy spawning in the bottom right is going to be able to tie things up here in game number 2. Spawning in the bottom right, representing Offside Esports, it is the Red Protoss Firefly.
And his opponent looking so sharp, hanging off the rim. It is Team Falcon's Bunny.
For as good as Bunny looked yesterday, he looked even better in that first map. And look at this cheeky little SCV we have moving out early on the map. Steadfast, I think we're going to have at least one proxy Rex, right? Or is this going to be potentially a bunker? What is your plan here, Bunny?
I'm thinking this might be engineering bay block. Yeah, he's not clicked on this just yet. It could still be the proxy second barracks.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Now that I'm looking at it, it does look like an engineering bay block. But we'll see exactly what Bunny's going to decide to do. Indeed, it will be that engineering bay. This is something that I haven't seen in a while. I feel like this is one of these tactics that comes in and out of the meta every maybe 6 months to a year or so. It's almost cyclical, these engineering bay blocks. But they are very annoying if you don't notice, especially if you do not begin the Zealot and then have it canceled ready.
Yes.
But luckily for Firefly, this probe is going to come down and spot it about as early as he possibly could, except obviously not able to get any damage on the SCV and slow that down. He's just going to take the third. Here on Golden Aura, this isn't that bad of a play because the third base is so close to your main, and taking the natural expansion really kind of seals the deal in terms of defense. So another probe going to be going down here. But I'm a little worried for Firefly if Bunny decides to lean even more heavy into the siege tanks in this game, because Golden Aura is already a map where in TVP, siege tank pushes at that third base, the linear third at the 6 o'clock position for the Protoss, are so strong because of that ramp choke, and because it is so hard for Protoss to get a flank coming around the other side of that upper ramp on the north. And if Bunny decides to go for that siege tank push, with this being the natural expansion, that is going to be a very difficult hold here for Firefly. So gonna have to keep our eyes on exactly how Bunny's going to develop here, because I'm sure this is something that is on his mind presently.
Yeah, this feels exactly like the game plan Bunny wants to be going for. And if it is, I think it's a very smart one. I'm a little bit worried for Firefly already. Now, it is going to be a Cyclone to start things out, but you can still absolutely go into that siege tank push from this position. Obviously, we saw that siege tank push attempted on this map yesterday between Showtime and Bunny. And the big moment in that game, that kind of almost defined the series in a little bit of a way, was the find. Yeah, exactly. Mapu showing us exactly where that tank was put, where it was just in vision. Showtime was able to jump it before it got more than even just a second shot. And that really let Showtime take complete control of the game. You're not really going to have that option if the siege tank drops out front of the third, if we do see a similar push like that.
Yeah, and Bunny's been really favoring the siege tanks so far in his TVPs. I mean, he's been playing so many TVP series thus far in this qualifiers. The first siege tank does start production, so perhaps we will have that one in the cards. We'll have to see if Bunny is going to keep the production up on those tanks, or if he'll cut it one the same way that he did in the previous map, as this adept gathers a little bit of scouting information. But again, for Firefly, a bit of an inefficient trade to start the game. I'm getting worried for him, because all of these little tiny things, they truly do add up, especially in the culminating moment where Protoss is trying to hold off against the first big Terran push, because usually that is the push that makes or breaks the game in this matchup.
Yeah, it certainly is. And this is already, like you said, looking dangerous for Firefly. It does look like Bunny is going to set up in that similar position in the natural. If he set up from the low ground, it could have been very dangerous. But, I mean, with all the production at the third, if Firefly loses that setup, even without losing the Nexus, he is in dire straits, and he doesn't see the siege tank siege up until it is already a little bit too late. He's already supply block trying to build the Immortal. Oh, and these bunkers are so strong. This almost already feels like checkmate.
I don't know what you do here as Firefly. Blink is about to be done. He cancels the Immortal, starts a Warp Prism. I like that it's going to give him a lot more micro potential here in this army, but with more siege tanks reinforcing, this is only going to get harder from here. Firefly needs to find some window where he's able to take these siege tanks out and slow the push down. I don't know if he can, though, with Blink every second counting like this. It's completed, but the bunkers are already up.
Didn't even get the
Warp Prism doesn't even
out.
complete. And this second siege tank is going to complicate matters even more here for Firefly. He's going to blink forward, going for a Hail Mary play, trying to defend, but with no micro potential here on the Warp Prism, almost every Seeker Stalker is going to fall. Yes, the siege tanks did go down, but with the Liberator joining forces and with these Marines moving into the natural expansion here in the third, oh, I'm so worried for Firefly. Bunny just with an excellent game plan here in game number 2, building so much momentum. He seems unstoppable, Steadfast.
He certainly does. He's getting it done with the early game pushes here in game number 2. And this is looking like a domination so far out of the Korean Terran. He is looking so damn strong.
Yeah, and I like that game plan too, especially on Golden Aura, a map that, if it goes to a macro game, is pretty good for Protoss, because it's so easy to defend on 4, maybe even 5 bases with the way the architecture works out. But Bunny, once again, finding some kind of opening with the siege tank pushes that he loved so much on day number 1, now doing it with the added quirk, the added little feature of going for the engineering bay block and making the expansion even more exposed there for his opponent. I like these adjustments that he's making from day 1 to day 2, even though it's a lot of the same ideas he was playing with in TVP before, and I'm sure Firefly watched those series. He's mixing it up just enough to keep Firefly guessing. And from really the opening salvo of both games, Bunny seems to be knocking Firefly into some kind of position where he isn't feeling that solid. He's shaky. Both games he lost the first Adept. Both games he lost the Scouting Probe. And these are the kind of things that when you add in, like the Hellions getting another kill, or the auto turret from the Raven adding in additional kills there in game number 1, or the engineering bait block kind of throwing off your whole expansion pattern, and then you lose the robo and the gateways there at your quote-unquote natural, which is positioned over there at the third. Things have just been so awkward for Firefly. There hasn't been seemingly one moment where it looks like he can just chill and play his game. From really the opening moments in every single map thus far, he has been struggling. And against a player like Bunny, that is a tough position to be in, because he is a very momentum-based Terran player, much more than a player like Maru. That aggression, once it starts going, it piles on hard. So if the comeback's going to happen, it's going to have to start from the very beginning of this game. Let's see if he can do it. Spawning in the bottom left, representing Offside Esports, it is Firefly.
And his opponent spawning up the team in the top right for Team Falcons. He has just been dominating from the start. It is Bunny. God, he just really has not given any quarter in this series whatsoever. And you can't expect quarter. You know, in a matchup like this, in a game like this, StarCraft 2 is a game of, you know, relentless pressure. But Firefly needs to find a way to, I don't know, stem the bleeding that has been just happening every single game to start things off.
I mean, forget about a quarter. Bunny's not giving Firefly a nickel or a dime. This has been some pretty brutal games to start things out. It's feeling a little bit like Lambo versus Stats game 1 and game 2. And, you know, I might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because we do have potentially 3 more games left to play in this series. But if Bunny can keep this momentum going and complete the sweep, can you imagine what a banger of a match Bunny versus Lambo is going to be in that lower bracket? With both these guys playing as well as they are right now, that would be spectacular. But also my heart's breaking a little bit for Firefly here in game 1 and game 2, because yesterday he was playing with some really cool ideas. I love the tactical play that he would go for in a couple of different matchups. I liked how he kind of played to the beat of his own drum and didn't really follow the typical meta and made it work to get here on day number 2. And I would love to see more of his PvT play. I'm actually really curious in what his approach would be here against Bunny if the game actually got to the position where he could showcase what he wants to execute here in this series. But thus far, it just hasn't gone his way.
I, too, would love to see Firefly get to play the game, because right now, Bunny hasn't let him. Bunny has not let him play the game, not really. Obviously, there's been some missteps, you know, some of the micro, he could be doing it a lot better, and we can talk about all the things, the little things that could be done better, but it's been Bunny applying that pressure and really keeping his opponent off guard and off balance. Firefly, he just needs to clean everything up, I feel like, if he wants to have a chance to find some kind of momentum in this one.
Yeah, and it's going to start from the early game, because both in game number 1 and in game number 2, every little trade, every little unit interaction to start things off went Bunny's way. And so for Firefly here with this Adept, you want to try and find some value. Going for that HP, or the low HP SEV, that would have been 2-shot because of the Pro, but again, losing the Adept for basically nothing. He hit an SEV once. Oh, it wasn't even the low HP SEV, I don't think, unless he hit them both. But in any case, Firefly, that is not what you want to happen again. This is 3 games in a row now that he has lost the opening Adept and the opening Probe. And I know I sound like a broken record on this, but these things do matter in the early game, especially against a Terran player as aggressive as Bunny.
Yeah, and so what happened with those? Even a Probe getting picked off. All the little things are just going right for Bunny, and all the little things are going wrong for Firefly. So what you're talking about there, the Probe was able to get a single zap on each of those. He's gonna get another Probe. He might get more. He could have stuck around and maybe grabbed 1 or 2 more, but he's electing to, I guess, macro at home, make sure he's not missing any of his timings. Will be the mine drop once again. I mean, I'm worried for I'm worried for Firefly right now. There's no other way to put it.
This is the stage in the game. Oh no, this Adept even taking so much damage, even if it survives. With Bunny going for the 3-racks follow-up here, and a relatively late engineering bay. This is looking a little bit similar to Bunny's approach in game number 1. Adept actually going to shade into the main base, so Firefly will trade this Adept out for scouting information. Let's see if we can find at least one SCV here of damage, but he knows the setup coming in from Bunny. He should be expecting this drop at any moment after seeing the 1-1-1. So the Widow Mines are going to siege here in the main base. Oh, should be 2 probes going down. In fact, 4.
That was so close to being a total disaster, though, because he just last second split those probes off. That could have easily been like 7, 8, 9 probes going down. And even still, it was more than the expected value. Bunny's already up in workers.
Yeah, this should not happen in PvT. I mean, this is the stage in the game where, you know, Protoss' macro mechanic is chrono boosting the probes. Terran's got mules. You need to have that higher probe count to kind of equalize things, right? So the fact that Bunny is 2 SCVs up on 2 command centers to Firefly's now 3 Nexus, the income advantage just tells the story. In an early game where Protoss should be a little bit ahead in terms of money, that has not been the case in this game. And Firefly is going to need to take some wins. Bunny just comes up with all of these clever tactics, all of these fantastic micro plays. And this chip damage from the opening moments in every single game thus far has added up into a victory. And it might be the same story here in game number 3.
It's looking like we are on the verge of that. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. There's still the push that has to be executed, and Firefly does have the opportunity to micro against these units. Good micro from Bunny there, pulling back. Good micro from both sides, realistically. I
like this adjustment that Firefly is making, by the way. He recognizes this 3-X push is going to have a lot of firepower. He's adding in 6 additional gateways. So the MO here for Firefly is not to try and build up. Oh, no. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. That was so close to disaster again. But I like that Firefly is throwing down all these additional gateways. He needs to beat this army on the ground in convincing fashion to kind of get back into this game with this gateway tech army. But with Charge only just now coming online, 4 more gateways in production. I don't know if he has the time steadfast.
No, it certainly doesn't look like battery overcharge will come on in. There's the drop on top of the army again. This time Firefly does get the target fire on those units. But even as he starts to hold the first wave of this push, more bio is flooding in. This is so difficult for Firefly. Battery overcharge is on cooldown. Widow Mines getting some good value there on the Zealots. And this is looking rough. He does hold for the moment, but it feels like a hold with an asterisk.
Yeah, it was a painful hold. A lot of units going down. Even these Stalkers here in the front line not being able to get blinked away. Another Warping going to come in, and Bunny microing down this Immortal and those low HP Stalkers as the damage is piling up. And here is Firefly with this massive gateway explosion. You're expecting to get a little bit of a better trade. Look at the unit's loss differential. It's basically twice as efficient here for Bunny against a Protoss who is gearing his entire build to try and stop this push with a massive force on the ground. It still hasn't happened.
Yeah. And it's the right move strategically, but you're almost relying on your opponent, not necessarily miss-microing, but your ability to out-micro them. And Bunny is just continuing to manage to take efficient trades, effective trades. He's doing a fantastic job of never letting Firefly find that ideal setup. This has been Firefly's MO quite often, is this gateway setup. Nice blink there, dodging the Widow Mine, and not having to blink all the units back. He does have the Prism here for additional micro. Can he find that fight he was looking for? He's doing such a good job of like holding, but it feels like a Band-Aid being put on like just a gaping wound at this point. Like it's so difficult to stop this flood of bio coming across the map. Now this is a great pick actually. If he can get all those bio units, oh, maybe this is an opportunity for Firefly to make something happen.
Yeah, if he could potentially isolate these reinforcements or this army over here on the top left side, that could be a big win, which Firefly desperately needs in this situation. And even though the army for Bunny on the ground doesn't look that formidable, the real issue here for Firefly is that the medevac count is just out of control. And Bunny even preemptively making Vikings not just to deal with this Warp Prism, but even a potential Colossus transition, because he knows his opponent is locked on 3 bases. He just canceled the 4th after scanning the 6 o'clock position, and the Vikings... Bunny is just locked in, man. I mean, Firefly cannot catch a break.
No. And what a read from Bunny to find that Prism. Good quick reaction time from Firefly means that he saves the Zealots, so at least he doesn't lose all 10 supply. But even losing a single robotics facility unit at this point is painful. And Bunny with a huge stim in once again. We are going to see a building forward coming in from Firefly to try and take this fight. Widow Mines getting some monster shots on the Zealots, though. And now it is just Stalker Immortal versus a stimmed Bioforce with a ton of medevacs. Widow Mines are going to try and burrow on up, and this time there's no way to dodge them for the Immortals. They both go down. Those were the backbone of the army for Firefly. And while Firefly was able to do a holding action for a while, Bunny never let go of the initiative. And it is looking like we are going to see our second 3-0 of the losers bracket. Bunny takes it down.
Bunny is on fire. That was about as close to an immaculate series as you could possibly get. I don't really know what Bunny could have done better. It was, frankly, a beatdown. And we saw how good his TVP was in day number 1, almost advancing into the qualifying match purely on the back of his TVP. And he is showing that he is a force to be reckoned with still in that matchup, even after that loss to Showtime. A very convincing 3-0. And I am so excited to go into Lambo versus Bunny later on tonight. That is going to be spectacular. I mean, get the fireworks ready, because if they play anywhere close to the way they did in Lambo's 3-0 versus Stats or Bunny's 3-0 just now, that has some incredible potential as a series.
It certainly does. I'm looking forward to that one. But yeah, we're going to be heading towards the upper bracket finals. We have said goodbye to 2 players. Stats and Firefly will not be able to make it to the EWC, but we now are looking towards sending someone to the Esports World Cup. It is going to be Shin versus Showtime, a best of 7 after the break. We will be taking a little break before then, but don't go anywhere. This is the EWC Last Chance Qualifier. I'm Steadfast. This is State. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We just had another break and another player sent home. We mentioned, yeah, obviously they're playing online, but it's a turn of phrase. I am, of course, Steadfast and joined by State, and this is the Esports World Cup Last Chance Qualifier. And now we have a couple of players duking it out for the first spot, the $15,000 guaranteed spot. It is going to be Showtime. It is going to be Shin. It is going to be a best of 7. I am looking forward to this one in a big way.
Yeah, and this is a qualifying match from two players who looked spectacular during the upper bracket. Shin versus Lambo. For as good as Lambo was against Stats, Shin felt even better in ZVZ, and that upper bracket match with that 3-0 was, I think, the fastest series of the day thus far. And Showtime also showed some incredible resilience against Bunny. We just saw Bunny dispatch Firefly like it was absolutely nothing, and Showtime brought him to match point and won on game number 5 in some really spectacular ways. And so this upper bracket finals, Showtime and Shin, they absolutely deserve to be here. Both of them, in my opinion, with the way they're performing, they deserve to be at EWC. But after this series, only one player is going to make it, and the other one's going to have one more chance.
Yeah, you summed it up perfectly. For me, even Showtime's loss on Crimson Court was an absolute display in resilience. He was dead from like that first tank push, it felt like. And then he picked a perfect fight, was able to clean it up, was still maybe a tiny bit behind, but was able to stay alive in an insane scenario. And I think both of us were agreeing that it was like, there was like 5 times that Showtime should have been dead in that particular game, but he was able to truly live up to the expectation that people have of him as Demauer, as, you know, that impenetrable wall that just can't be toppled. Now, with such an aggressive Zerg in the mid game, going up against such a defensively oriented player once again, this is kind of a match made in heaven.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun clash of styles. And as you said, it's not a best of 5, it's a best of 7. So we're going to go the distance in this series. We are truly going to find out which player is more deserving of not only the berth to the EWC, not only the chance of qualifying or becoming the StarCraft 2 global champion, but also $15,000 just to make it. Spawning in the top right, he would love to get a piece of that pie. Representing BIG, it is Showtime.
And his opponent spawning down in the bottom left for Game & Gladiators. It is Shin. And this is interesting. We've got an Extractor Trick 15 hatch coming on in out of Shin on the outside gold base. If you can get away with this, this is so freaking good. You get that high yield gas.
Scout this?
He's going to scout this. We actually saw Scarlet versus Trigger in the open qualifier, and Trigger cannon rushed this base. Scarlet gave it up. Showtime, if he scouts this, I think we should see a cannon rush once again. I don't think you should let the Zerg get away with this.
Yeah, I don't feel like a cannon rush can be defended from this position. It is such a great distance away, but Showtime, it seems like he is not going to go for that. Instead, just working his way into the main base. He's happy to play from this position and not go into some kind of quirky mess of a game against one of the players that can mud wrestle with the best of them in Shin. I mean, this guy thrives when the game gets down and dirty. But I am still surprised, even though I know that Showtime is a more defensive player. In the same way that Stats is a defensive player, we still saw Stats go for multiple cannon rushes when his opponents went for greedy golds. And this is the greediest of the greedy golds. I mean, look at how far these drones have to waddle to get over here to this gold base. And that's not just a gold base, it's a gold base with a high yield Vespene gas. And Shin, with the economy boost this is going to give him in a couple moments, is going to have the potential to do some crazy aggressive plays if he decides to. And I feel like that is basically inevitable here.
Yeah, and with Dynasty being picked, traditionally speaking, I look at this map and I'm like, this is a great Protoss map because it's a free gold base for the Protoss, and the Zerg is not supposed to be able to take that because they have to take the inside gold base. and they can be harassed by adepts, by stalkers, by oracles. It's really uncomfortable to hold. You can do that like queen trick where you trick it through the mineral line and it's on the outside. But with Shin taking the outside gold, that is completely different. That is a complete flip of the script. And Showtime not punishing that, game is going to be really difficult for him. And Shin is not stopping. Oh, actually, did he stop mining gas? What has he got on the one high yield geyser? It's still ticking up. Okay, just one drone at a time. So it's not going to be something insanely crazy necessarily, but like considering the fact that he went extractor trick 15 hatch, he's got a very quick link speed because of how much gas he's taking in.
I mean, 8 at a time is pretty insane for that one drone. So Adept now working its way into the main base with this Shade is going to get a quick check on the mineral line here of Shin. Sees it's basically full. And so not too much being telegraphed here with that scouting information, and Showtime knowing that Speed is probably not too far away is going to have to retreat back home. And there is for now an income advantage here on Showtime, but keep in mind that Shin is closing that distance very quickly with less workers because of that gold and that high yield Vespine gas. And he also made a pretty fair number of lings too, so the fact that he is staying as close as he is in overall in terms of income, I mean, it just shows the power of this expansion.
I feel like Shin wanted Showtime to see those lings so that Showtime would not go across the map with the Oracle. That felt like I made lots of lings. Don't do it. Don't go across. I don't want you to harass this gold base. I look how many lings I have. You have to respect this. And then Showtime was like, oh, okay, well, I have a full wall at the natural and I'm taking the gold base inside. So no, it's okay. I can still send this across. That felt like very much a like look over here, type of moment.
Well, Shin now going up into the layer tech, adding an additional Vespine geyser in the main. Showtime, as of yet, hasn't been able to find any damage with these oracles. He's going to come into the natural expansion. Drone quickly morphs into a spore crawler, so with the mineral line still vacant. These oracles wanting for kills, but not really finding anything yet. And we're going to have another gas coming in from Shin. This is so much gas. This sounds kind of crazy. I don't even believe that I'm saying this. Could this be like Muta? I mean, look at how much gas we have from Shin.
That's kind of what it feels like when you look at this out of the gate. Nice find in the natural. 4 drones getting picked off by the oracles. And the quad adept, well, it's not going to be able to get in on this base with the lings and queens in the position that they are. Okay, it's going to be a Hydralisk den. I was going to mention this layer was insanely fast. And it feels like it has to be some kind of quick tech from the Zerg player, and that's exactly what we are going to see. Showtime, I mean, this is a pretty decent length map, but when you look at the outside gold base to that natural of the Protoss, it does not feel that long any longer.
And especially once those gold minerals... Oh, hold that thought. Adept shading into the natural expansion. Shin with a pretty slow reaction here, was not anticipating this. A lot of drones going down already. This is a big win for the German Protoss. With 4 drones being killed in total, and these adepts, they're not done yet. They're going to go into the main base. There's only drones. The queen got pulled. 7 drones going down and trading out efficiently here with the lings. Wow, Shin got caught completely blindsided by this. I cannot believe how much damage these unupgraded adepts just accomplished. That is beyond the wildest expectations Showtime possibly had for this attack.
That was truly nuts how much damage that just did. Shin, it feels like he sent the lings to the natural and was like, okay, this is dealt with. But the spore crawler was body blocking his lings, and Showtime made the subtlest little adjustment with the positioning such that like 10, maybe 12 lings were all trying to squeeze around this one spore crawler, and only 2 of them were attacking at once. Absolutely disastrous situation for Shin. He does still have a very strong economy despite those losses because of the gold base, but this attack is now super all in. It was already committed, but it is much more committed than it was before. However, it's got a lot of punch.
These stasis traps could be huge here for Shin. For Showtime, I mean, look at that. 4 Hydras caught already. Showtime has charge done. His lings are coming in from the triangle third. He might actually move in with this army. +1 is done as well. You know, there's only lings assisting here. They're going to get 2-shot by those zealots. With so few Hydras in the fight, this is just going to be a cleanup here. What a move by Showtime. I mean, this momentum is insane. I don't know how you come back from this as Shin. The entire game plan just fell apart after 10 drones went down to those adepts. And then this charge lot timing with +1, immaculate from Showtime. Shin just got rinsed. That was insane.
Yeah, even without the stasis ward, it felt like the Zealots might have been able to take the fight there. Hold that thought, we do see a little bit of an overextension, but as the rest of Army of Showtime shows up, one more warping of charge loss, and I feel like this is just going to be all she wrote in game number 1. Great positioning from Shin, but as the Archons close the distance, they're going to get some great shots. Showtime up in Army Supply, up in Workers, and is going to take a game number 1 victory here off the back of this very nice play. Good defensive setup from Shin in the mineral line, and he's fighting tooth and nail, but that next Warping of Zealots, I think, should just close this one out. Man, what a moment for that game number 1 with those Adepts getting into the natural, just completely ending Shin's career in that game number 1. Jeez.
Yeah, the dreams that Shin had of causing some insane shenanigans with that high-yield Vespene gas on the outside with the gold base, just completely botched by that defense. And the fact that Showtime was able to find that much damage with those Adepts is frankly obscene. I mean, 10 drones after Shin had been catapulted by the gold base to get his tech online faster, to get all of those lings out already. I thought the trade was already pretty good for Showtime before he went into the main base and basically doubled the damage.
Yeah.
And for Shin, in a moment of the game where he wants to cut drones and start to hone in on this aggression, this timing attack that he's been building up to over the course of the entire match, the fact that he gets basically decapitated in terms of eco and loses all the lings that should be assisting the Hydras in a cost-inefficient way, plus the stasis trap is just the cherry on top, because you're absolutely right, Steadfast. Regardless of the stasis, I think Showtime moves in for that fight with +1 in charge at that timing and with that huge swell of Zealots. And Shin is getting cleaned up regardless, but with 4 less Hydras in the fight, it just adds insult to injury and the game ends that much faster. A really brilliant game 1 coming in from Showtime. I was a little bit skeptical about him not going for the cannon rush on that gold, but it seems like he's not really afraid to let Shin get some kind of advantage as long as he can play his reactive defensive game, because that was really beautiful. I mean, talk about a perfect execution.
Yeah, this is looking very promising to start things off for this man. Spawning down on the bottom left for Berlin International Gaming, it is Showtime.
And spawning at the top right, hoping to tie this best of 7 series up with a victory here. Representing Game & Gladiators, it is Shin. Add another syllable into that one.
At this point, they're going to be the Game & Sadiators if Shin can't turn this one around. It's not the Game & Gladiators anymore.
Well, I mean, it's game 1 in a best of 7, and honestly, even for Shin, I know that was his game plan, to go for the high-yield Vespene gas and the gold base. And so he kind of picked his poison in terms of the way that game was going to go, but that doesn't mean that this is necessarily his comfort zone exactly, as we have... What even are these?
They're totally not Ewoks. Definitely not Ewoks, for
this
sure.
This is copyright free.
Yes.
This is non-Star Wars IP.
Yeah, these are when you ask for Ewoks, this is when mom says we have Ewoks at home.
I love this little ritual dance you're doing with those those 6 over the crashed Banshee. But yeah, just going back to the point that I was making there with Shin, I know that was his game plan coming into this one. Looking like New York City here for a moment, but I know that was Shin's game plan going into game number 1 to kind of make the game funky, but that doesn't necessarily mean that things are completely practiced and up to speed, especially in the weekend format like this, where you're kind of trying to adjust from day 1 to day 2 very quickly. There isn't too much time to prepare, and I don't think game 1 going as in favor of Showtime as it did is really indicative of where these players are going to be at over the course of this entire best of 7, just because I know it was Shin's game plan, but it still is a very funky game, and he got knocked off balance so early on. I think that Shin, if he's able to get into the mid game in a bit more of a standard fashion and really showcase the mid game strength that he has earned over the course of his career as a StarCraft 2 player, is going to really be able to bring a much better fight to Showtime. Man, this game, even though we're playing on post youth so far, looking like a pretty standard setup for both these guys.
Yeah, certainly. No quick gold base out of Shin. I mean, he got the gold base in game number 1, and it did not pay the dividends he was looking for to take the game. Obviously, it still set him up nicely into the mid game, but yeah, like you said, it's one game in a best of 7. There is still so much time in this series for plays to be made, for things to turn around. Even when a series is 3-1, you don't want to call it over, because all it takes is a little bit of momentum and something breaking one way or another, and a player can find some momentum that they didn't have before. To be honest, Shin may not even feel like, even if he's warmed up before this, he may not feel mentally warmed up. There's a difference between being in a practice lobby and actually playing a game for realsies. But we're just going to see at Showtime electing to not get aggressive with those adepts. Would be extremely bold to go in with the first 2 adepts on specifically this map, because there's obviously that in-base setup. But we'll see if he can find any value with the first Oracle.
Yeah, those adepts just going to be assisting the defense back at home, as Shin with his vision is going to be... Oh, that Spore Crawler finishing almost in the nick of time. Look, that Oracle gets 1 kill and the Spore Crawler is done. I like that timing there by Shin, but some very flashy micro from Showtime, and he gets 3 drones for really just a little bit of health there on that Oracle. Usually you want to go fishing for 3 drone kills in a main mineral line with the Spore Crawler finishing at that timing, and your Oracle is basically guaranteed to be on 1H, so Showtime's going to be really happy with that.
Yeah, and a reminder that, of course, they are playing cross servers, so they're playing with ping. The fact that he just did that with the Oracle at max range, that was clean. And now he's going to be able to find another couple drones. Queen's out of position in the main mineral line. That's 2 more drones. A pretty fantastic start for Showtime.
It could have been a little bit better there with the Oracle control, but still, 2 drones, catching them like that, regardless, it's a win. It doesn't matter if it could have been better. That's 5 in total going down. We're basically at the Ricky rule, where sort of would be ready to call it. 5 drones down to the first couple of Oracles, right? I mean, PvZ is very much of a matchup that can be dictated by the early game. And one of these Oracles might go down. That last shot barely connects at max range with the Queen. So Shin finally getting something going his way, as that will equalize it. That Oracle not worth trading out for 2 drones, but still the economic damage it has mounted here on Shin. And we'll see what he's able to get done with these Lings. The Adepts still back at home, and one of these Oracles still very high on energy, as Showtime did go up to 3 relatively quick, means that Shin shouldn't be able to fish for too much here with these Zerglings, and Showtime can basically macro up as he pleases. I'm wondering, actually, how many gateways is he going up to? There's 3 more in production. How many does he have online right now? All right, it's going to be 7-gate Blink with +1. We might have some really heavy Blink Stalker aggression coming Shin's way in a moment.
Yeah, this is definitely at least 1 more than the normal quote-unquote macro play. I feel like 6 gates is kind of the magic number for you continue to tech up, you take your 4th base, and we might even see the aggressive hero gateway, that 8th gateway outside of the gold. This high ground can really give you a great staging point to attack from.
I know the stasis trap also being thrown down on that pylon just to make sure that this is going to be a stable foothold. Also, those Lings, if they run past the line of sight blocker, they could all get caught. Really nice placement there by Showtime. I love this gateway positioning right on the center of Post Youth. It's going to have so much map control, even a second stasis ward covering the other pylon. And now with Blink about to finish up and this gold base, is Shin going to cancel after seeing these gateway units? No, he is not. But does he actually have enough to defend? And yeah, look, the Lings already getting caught by that stasis. Incredible foresight there by Showtime. And this hatch with those Lings out of the equation, it's just going to get completely forfeited here by the Zerg.
Now I feel like the objective of the push is kind of somewhat already achieved. I wonder if Showtime will just go back and take his own gold base and then just use this as like a very forward position. I would kind of love to see that. Maybe get into, okay, he's going to add +1 armor. I was going to say +2 attack, but the +1 armor does finish quicker. There's a lot of very hero-esque type maneuvers coming in from Showtime, even down to adding that +1 armor instead of the +2 attack, since it is that faster upgrade. But will Shin be able to defend this, since Showtime is continuing to keep the aggression on?
Stalker's on this ramp, able to pick off at least 1 Ravager. In fact, 2 go down with that trade. And Showtime with his Stalker, by the way, holding that in a position between the gateway and the pylon. If he wanted to, he could just blink that into the stasis to keep it safe. So I love how he's anchoring this spot here in the center of the map, and with the soccer ball beginning to grow as high as it is, it's going to be hard for Shin to really take a fourth base, and even those Lings getting blinked on, a couple of them getting taken out. Showtime, he's not all in with his attack. He's slowly trickling in a couple more probes. He's getting +1 ground armor. He's adding an additional geyser. And with these stalkers, I like what he's doing, not transitioning too quickly out of it, because he has map control. For Shin, it is so hard for him actually to take a favorable fight off of creep, even with Roach, Ravager, Hydra, just because of the micro potential here for these stalkers. And that means that Shin is basically going to be stuck onto 3 bases to an almost maxed army supply, which is not the kind of situation you want to be in, especially with the gold bases and the natural expansion going to be running out very quickly, if not already, and the main base beginning to mine out. Shin is already oversaturated on 60 drones, and Showtime's taking that gold.
Yeah, it looks like he is going to just try and use this staging point. Now, with this amount of Roach, Hydra, the Zealots and Stalkers are going to be forced to retreat. Showtime will kind of be awkwardly thrown backwards. What I thought he was going to do is I thought he was going to keep the Zealots hidden and then wait for Shin to push off of creep and try and flank the army with a bunch of charge loss and have Stalkers kind of whittling away at it. But instead, now he is on a very awkward retreat. He's going to lose this pylon, lose this gateway, and he has lost all control of the middle of the map. There's those Zealots coming in from the side now for a little counterattack. But it feels like Shin has a lot of a huge opportunity to get some big damage done.
Yeah, Showtime was not expecting Shin to push all the way there through this center, and as a result, did not take a very favorable trade. But with these armies isolated, maybe an opportunity for Showtime to get some damage done on this retreating force in the middle. A couple more Roaches getting picked off. These are the kind of trades that Showtime needs to make if he wants to get full value out of these Stalkers, because now his MO has to be defending this gold base, but with those last couple of trades not really being what he was hoping for, I think it's almost the table just turning here, with now Shin having this formidable force keeping Showtime locked on 3 bases. And I was singing the praises of this slow transition coming in from Showtime, but now maybe a little bit too slow here, as he doesn't really have the tools on the ground to have a favorable trade against this maxed Roach Hydra army.
Yeah, with no Storm, no Disruptors, no Colossus, it is going to be tough to deal with this. Great concave coming in from Shin. Corrosive Biles and Target Fire will take down that battery overcharge, but a big blink to the right side will isolate this one army. Can Showtime still make a defense despite being so far down in supply? Shin will be able to get out of here with a lot of these units, but a pretty good fight from Showtime, I gotta say. However, this feels like it feels like the momentum is really in the favor of Shin, and with that gold base down now behind this, his income is going to continue to scale better.
Yeah, Shin has finally gotten through that bottleneck of 3 bases, with them both slowly mining out. And that gold base online, the fact that he's sitting on 63 drones, it really doesn't hurt that bad, because the mineral income is starting to skyrocket again here for the Zerg. And at this stage, with the maxed army, you basically want to take a fight here as Shin. He's looking to battle with Showtime, and if he can get a favorable engagement, because he has Hive Tech coming. He has Lurker Den coming online very soon. He would love to add in some additional tech. Even a delay coming in here on the +2 ground weapon, just causing even more problems here for Showtime, who is going to go into a couple of force fields. I like this, trying to section off some of this army here from Shin, but it almost feels like Showtime is trying to chip away at a mountain with how large Shin's army has grown into, and the fact that we're soon going to have Hive Tech Lurkers being added with no Stargate transition in sight, with the Robo only just now getting thrown down. I'm not sure Showtime is going to be able to wriggle his way out of this one. I feel like these past couple of trades here in the mid game have just been a little bit too much in favor of Shin.
Yeah, and single resources lost 1,000 in favor of the Zerg is never a good time for a Protoss player, unless you're on like 7 bases to 5 or 7 bases to 4, something like that. We're going to see a fight in the middle of the map. Nice job with the force fields, but the Corrosive Vial is going to be able to break those down. I feel like right now with Showtime's setup, he needs to find a way to get like across the map and somehow force field his opponent's ramp, but that is not going to happen here. Good force fields will break this army in half, but Lurkers are lurking, and I just think that there's a little bit too much here. It's a great concave from Showtime. Really phenomenal concave. But I think the Lurkers are just too strong.
That's basically the best possible fight you could take here. Showtime playing the hand that he was dealt as best he possibly could, but Shin just a little bit too strong now. And somehow miraculously the German Protoss going to be able to survive against that push. I thought he was dead to rights, but
Yeah.
look at the army supply still. 90 for Shin, tripling the army supply here of Showtime as he is ready to recharge and nearly remax. Already at 106 supply. Showtime knows that he taps out. And we are all tied up at 1-1. And that was more of the mid-game strength of Shin that I was expecting to see. Showtime, he made some really fantastic plays with the Stalkers earlier on, keeping Shin bottlenecked on these 3 bases, with the main and the natural also mining out. But at the end of the day, the Roach Hydra is a little bit too effective. Shin being able to get the better in terms of army movement there onto his opponent Showtime, and best of 7 turns into a best of 5. Both these players now only 3 map wins away from qualifying for the EWC.
Yeah, quite an interesting match. I wonder if Showtime had added sentries earlier on in the mid game. Could he have found better fights with the Blink Stalkers before he got kind of jumped and took that? Well, I mean, Shin took a really good fight against the Zealot Stalker. It was kind of a stumbling retreat from Showtime. And from there, it felt like the momentum was just completely in the favor of the Zerg. I wonder if force fields around those rocks at the Watchtower would have been enough to break the momentum. I don't know,
Maybe.
but it
From
feels
my
like the
perspective,
tech just didn't advance enough. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, from my perspective, the sentries, it's kind of just a Hail Mary play. It's like, look, I'm up against the wall. Maybe I can chip off enough of this army that I can find a way to stabilize and then tech up from there. So I would have liked to see Showtime potentially go into something like Storm behind it and spend that gas there. But again, it's tough in a position like that one because you know you're on a clock there as Showtime. You're accomplishing a lot of your objectives with the Stalkers, but if you can't actually breach the 3rd base with this push that is heavily committed, you're kind of just slowing the inevitable growth of this Roach Hydra army that is going to trade very efficiently in a straight-up fight, but we'll have to see exactly what the game plan is. Coming into game number 3, spawning in the top left, we have, for Berlin International Gaming, Showtime.
And his opponent spawning down on the bottom right. For Game & Gladiators, it is Shin. And it
Just
is
going
worth...
back to that point. Oh, yeah, no, you
Oh, no,
go ahead,
continue,
Steadfast.
by all means.
I was just going to say there for Showtime is you can't really fault him too much for having that slow transition just because you kind of need to keep adding on the Stalkers so that you can take some good fights against the composition that Shin is running, because say he does go for some kind of Storm transition and Shin is able to break onto the map and reach Showtime's base before Storm is online, it basically feels like game over. So it's really a fine line you need to walk there playing that style. It's one of the reasons why oftentimes only the most daring Protoss players in the world will try to play that. You have to be really S-class to make it work, like Hero, like Max Packs, like Showtime, and even then, sometimes it doesn't pay off, even if you accomplish some of your secondary objectives, like denying that 4th base.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really tough. It's super tough to make that transition. Obviously, if Showtime can go up to, for example, double Robo Disruptor, he's going to be able to destroy that army. But like you said, getting to that point, especially since he didn't build a robotics facility right away, is such a difficult thing. Obviously, he had a ton of gas, and I think, yeah, Storm would have probably been the better option if he was going to try and transition into that next stage of tech. But without it, like you said, it's so difficult to make it happen against a Roach, Ravager, Hydra army when you're just stuck on those pure gateway units. The fact that Showtime, though, took as good of fights as he did and was that hard to kill, though, on basically Zealot Stalker for, like, so long on even upgrades. I mean, that might actually be the kind of thing where Shin's like, really? Like, you really, it was this hard to kill you?
Yeah, it's reminiscent of the series against Bunny a little bit. And I know part of that is because Shin knew he was so far ahead at that point with the Hive Tech Lurkers that he could basically throw that army away, recharge, go again, and end the game regardless. But I agree with you. Shin probably also a little bit taken aback by the magnificent engagement that Showtime had there at the 4th base, because that was the kind of the stuff of dreams. In an even game, that's the kind of fight that decides who wins and who loses. But unfortunately for Showtime, Shin just grew a little bit too fast, and that was not enough to close the distance. But game number 3 now, a clean slate. I would be a little surprised if we saw that Blink Stalker play come in again from Showtime. But let's not write him off. I feel like he has a lot of range he's been showcasing over the course of this qualifier, both in day 1 and in day 2, and I'm always interested in seeing what he's going to bring to the table in the next map.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Couple interesting things, by the way, in terms of build order right here. So Showtime went for the hatch block on his opponent, but Shin went for a 15 hatch. He actually cut one of those drones to get that down. He's been doing that a little bit in his games recently. Cool little adjustment. And now Showtime dropped a ludicrously fast third Nexus before starting up that Oracle, going for, what is that? That was like a 315, 320 third Nexus. That is about 30 to 35 seconds before the standard like 345, 350 third Nexus timing. And Shin, I mean, yeah, he's going to get a wraparound on this one Adept. And that will force the Oracle back home, but... Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you. The Oracle is absolutely going to have to come back home and deal with this. But Showtime, it seems like he is going to get away with this fast third base. I like the greed we're seeing out of both of these players here to start things off in game number 3. For Showtime, or for Shin, excuse me, a little bit of a win with those Lings, even though he only got one Adept to force that Oracle back. If we think back to most of the PvZ games that we have seen, not only in this qualifier, but around the world, you can usually expect that Oracle to be good for 2 or 3 drone kills. So those Lings buying that time back at home almost serves in kind of an indirect way, an economic purpose here for Shin. He kind of gets those larvae back in a sense because he's saving drones that he didn't make.
Yeah, and it allows your queens to get better into position. Showtime does find one drone right there, but he's not able to get that second drone. Shin barely able to pull it out of range of the second Oracle, so good micro from Shin on the defense. Shin actually overbuilding Overlords here a little bit. Not the most efficient build setup. He's going for that +1 melee. We're not going to be seeing the crazy build we saw out of Lambo in Game 1 versus Stats, where it was a fake Evo chamber that really caught Stats off guard and set the tone for that entire series, but it will be an actual real +1 melee build. And in fact, we might even see a skipped Roachborn here, or maybe like on a laser-esque straight Hydraling Bane play.
Yeah, keep in mind, Shin also would have been seeing some of those series, and a laser looked really good on Site Delta when he played against Stats with that Hydraling Bane. Mailiness already coming down as well. I think you might be right here. And in a game like this where, yes, Showtime got away with this very fast third base, but also Shin was able to parry the harassment coming in from the Oracles pretty masterfully thus far.
Yeah.
I feel like this kind of attack could pack a lot of punch, and Showtime, he is getting up in the Storm. All these Lings actually going to try and find their way into the natural expansion, but... Oh, he's going to trade them out? I'm almost surprised at this, but I guess you're going to get a Stalker and maybe an Adept or two. This is actually looking better for Shin than I thought it would.
That was
the service area. Seemed... Yeah. Wow, I almost feel like I learned something right there. I was expecting that with a minimal surface area to be so much better for Showtime, but Shin just absolutely knows he can take that fight. And look, he's making more Lings. Ooh. He wants to try and get these small trades so that Showtime doesn't really have as much of a gateway mass to support the higher tech units like the Immortals, like the Templar that are going to be coming out and going to be linchpinning the defense in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, that was a great highlight on how difficult it is to actually keep your units alive as a Protoss player if you don't have either that Blink or that Oracle support or a shield battery or a choke to sit in. Because even though he was kind of tucked up against the wall, Shin was able to still get enough surface area that it was a high-value trade. We're going to be seeing an Archon being produced out of Showtime because of those early units that he lost. And that does two things for Shin. One, obviously it slows down the High Templar numbers for Storm. And two, it also shows him what the tech of Showtime is, that it is almost certainly going to be that Storm setup. Now, Showtime is staying on 3 bases going... Or no, never mind. He's got a 4th Nexus, but he's built the gateways first. He's prioritized the gateway production over that very quick 3rd Nexus. So he really wants to make sure that he does not die. And he is very aware of how dangerous Shin is going to be for the next few minutes.
Yeah, Showtime displaying a lot of respect for his opponent in terms of defense. So Shin's going to confirm the Templar account. 4 over here at the 3rd base, and he is not backing off on pulling the trigger, by the way. Oh, holy crap, look at this. Showtime coming in at a moment where Shin not really expecting it and actually catching 5 drones with those Oracles, which straight up in an engagement against Hydraling Bane, they usually don't provide too much value except in the back line. So Being able to shave off any workers like this in the mid game is going to be a nice win here for Showtime as the attack is now commencing. Shin setting his sights on this fourth base. Hydra's coming in, able to take down this gateway wall. Archon going to be able to mitigate the splash damage coming in from those banelings, and actually a nice storm getting dropped on those lings. But oh, look at this!
A baneling run by at that third base, finding 20 probes without the speed, even getting a couple of zealots to boot. This is already looking so difficult for Showtime, but Shin finding a huge opening salvo.
Man, that caught even me off guard. I'm so glad the Observer was able to get a catch of it, because what a game-defining moment. So many probes going down. And for as good as Showtime's defense was at the fourth base, it was basically a diversion for this attack, and now more banelings coming in. Showtime is notified as the first baneling triggers the under attack notification, but it's going to be a lot harder to hold now that he lost so much economy. 3 or 4 more storms left here for Showtime. Isn't going to be enough. First storm drops into those banelings, but they're still able to connect with the mass. And oh, the Templar going down to the Banes. That's a lot of the AoE damage getting eliminated here for Showtime. One more storm is going to be very good on those Hydras, but I feel like he just doesn't have enough on the ground anymore.
And no charge means he can't just go for a big warp in on that army and try to hold. GG is called. Shin takes game number 3 off of a couple of very decisive maneuvers. That one fight out front of the natural feels like it really kind of shook the confidence of Showtime, forced that early Archon morph, forced him to show his tech, and then the Banelings getting in on that third Nexus. There was a wall around the third base, but it wasn't a full wall. It was a wall that just kind of guided the Banelings in towards the backside, and man, that's the kind of stuff we were expecting out of Shin, is that high-tier aggression. Very nice game number 3 from him.
Yeah, he is so terrifying in the mid-game. One of the scariest mid-game battling Zergs, I think, in the world, frankly. And he is absolutely showcasing both in Game 2 and Game 3 why that is. And I feel like for Showtime, it's a little bit sad, because if those banelings do not connect on the third base and those probes are able to retreat safely, I think he has a chance to hold. I think he can possibly stabilize, but as soon as your mineral income basically gets severed by that kind of attack, suddenly your AoE units, the Templar, they have basically no reinforcements coming in to assist, and you saw that with a great storm on the banelings basically doing max damage, but then there's no gateway units really to clean them up, and they're still able to connect on top of the Templar. That's the kind of moment where you cannot make that mistake. You need to be ironclad on the defense if you want to hold that position down. And now we have Shin taking a 2-1 lead.
Yeah. And even to that point, the static defense setup from Showtime, he committed a fair amount to that third base. Like, he put 2 stasis wards down. He put a couple cannons down. He put a big gateway wall down. But the fact that he still took damage even while doing so is extremely painful. And he is going to have to ratchet things up a little bit here in game number 4, spawning down in the bottom left. It is Biggs Showtime.
And spawning in the top right, leading this best of 7, 2-1, representing the Game and Gladiators, it is Shin.
And for a very long time, this Hydraling Bane with the ultra-aggressive setup was very, very common. This was an extremely common play out of Zerg players. You know, Bane's running into a third base, Ling's trying to run by at a natural while Hydraling Bane smashes the fourth, or Bane's hitting the fourth base while you attack at the third base with your main army. But we haven't seen it as often in the last little bit. It's still absolutely in the meta, and we saw it a fair bit from a laser yesterday. But it's not that, like, almost every game thing we saw, you know, a few years ago.
Yeah, there's a lot of different aggressive tactics that we've seen Zergs showcasing over the course of this qualifier to try and get out of the mid game against Protoss without sustaining, well, I don't want to say without sustaining too much damage. I guess to prevent the Protoss from really getting to the late game in a position where they want to be in is more where I'm angling with this. And by the way, in this early game, Showtime went for a really nice play that I quite liked. He had that early probe go and scout and go to the gold base, which has been a really popular take that we've seen a couple of times over the course of this qualifier, but unfortunately for him, Shin just opted to go for the natural expansion, so a little bit of a sad moment here for the Protoss. He gambled, and it did not quite pay off. Not a huge deal, but I did like the adjustment that Showtime made, sending that probe in, because had Shin gone for the gold, oh, that would have been a really impactful move.
Yeah. It would have been quite nice to be able to get that block, but I believe Showtime has done this particular thing in the past. So Shin most likely has done his research and has seen, okay, you're not going to let me have that gold base, so I'm not going to try and take it. Because if I do, you're just going to get that little advantage that you alluded to. And to be honest, I think it's still a worthwhile play from Showtime just to prevent that gold from coming up, because, you know, a Zerg player that gets a gold base it's not comfy. It's an unpleasant experience. And as we saw in Dynasty, Showtime didn't really want to cannon rush the gold base, even though that was definitely an option for him with that outer gold base being taken by Shin. So if he didn't want to cannon rush there, he probably wouldn't want to cannon rush here. So it kind of makes sense to just make sure that it doesn't go down. And I think I'm still okay with it for Showtime, even though it's technically a mind game win for Shin.
That's now coming in. Should be able to get that creep tumor. Indeed, they do. Oh, almost even getting the second one. That would have been a huge win here for the German Protoss, but instead, Shin going to be able to connect that creep up with the third base, as the Lings are going to chase the Adepts away from the main, and Showtime should be gunning to take that third pretty soon, as we have a little bit of a swell of Lings come in here for Shin. Not too many, but enough to potentially snipe that probe if Showtime is unprepared. Yeah, a little bit curious about where the Oracle has been. Is the first Oracle just now popping out?
Yes. Yeah, we'll be...
It feels a touch later than usual, but maybe maybe this is me getting sleepy. I'm not sure.
The number of times
timing is gone.
Yeah, the number of times where I've been like 4, 5, 6 hours into a cast, and I'll be like, I'll focus up on a game, and I'll be like, this is 3 seconds late. Or I'll be like, oh my god, this is so late. And then I look at the timer, because I like look at a health bar or something, and it's a color that I'm not expecting. It's like, I don't know, orange or yellow, so it's not that high yet. And I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy. Like this is like 10 seconds late, 15 seconds late. And then it gets closer to the timing, and it's like, I'm like, okay, maybe it's like 3 seconds late. Okay, it's like 1 sec. No, it's early. It's actually 1 second early. Damn it. Speaking of early things, though, we actually have an insanely fast layer. Shin is not a player that I think of when it comes to that Ling Nidus Queen play. But this looks like we might be looking down the barrel of a potential Queen Ling Nidus. Now, we did go for 2 gases with this, but I don't know. This feels like we could be seeing a very early Nidus worm getting thrown down.
I think you might be right, especially with more queens in production. And indeed, brilliant call. This is not Dark. This is Shin.
Yeah, but it's
the same. It's very much the same idea that Dark has worked to incredible success in so many games. This Queen Ling Nidus attack, if it goes unscouted, if Showtime is not able to discover exactly what is coming in the pipeline, oh, look at this. There's no coverage in the main base.
No, there is no coverage in the main base. We also had a transfer of drones from Shin to the third base. He transferred 5 drones over to that base. We can see the revelations coming down. Showtime did revelate the natural, though, and he might not have noticed that the drones were transferred. He revelated just enough of the mineral line to not see everything. This looks like it is going to hit super hard. Oracles are going to gut this third base, but seeing no queens, that has got to be enough of a tell. Can he get to the eye on this Nidus worm? It is coming up.